How to Eat Fried Worms by Thomas Rockwell. Chapter 31. The Letter. Billy lifted the worm out of the frying pan with the cooking tongs and curled it back and forth on his peanut butter sandwich. "I bet they'd try something," he said. "Joe won't give up. Alan might, but Joe won't." Tom was carving his initials in the leg of the kitchen table. "Yeah, but it's not Joe's bet. What does he care? Just the same, I bet he'd try something." Billy sat down at the table, turning the sandwich this way and that, looking for the best spot to take the first bite. Emily came into the dining room. "You and Mom got a letter." Chewing, Billy opened it. Charles M. McGrath, M.D., 34 Beechwood Drive, Grattan, New York, 12601. Midnight, August 15th, 1993. Mrs. John Forrester, 7 Manchester Road, East Grattan, New York, 12603. Dear Mrs. Forrester, I've just made a distressing discovery. While leafing through a medical journal before going up to bed, I noticed an article entitled Poisons in the Home Garden, a subject which necessarily fascinates me. As I glanced through the article, a phrase caught my eye. Lumbricus terrestris, the common earthworm. I read on. Mrs. Forrester, let me assure you, first of all, that there is no cause for undue alarm. However, you will, I am sure, be concerned to learn that, especially in the months of July and August, parents must beware of the common earthworms, some varieties of which are known to secrete a substance, Lumbricus corpus, which, though not malignant to the skin, is sometimes harmful if swallowed. Dr. A. C. Roosevelt of Hyde Park, New York, reports that 10% of the boys studied reported no ill effects except induced paralysis of the lower fulmar region. 40% reported abdominal cramping, triple vision lasting from 2 or 3 years, and impairing school performance. Extreme lassitude. Autopsy reports have not yet been received on the remaining 50%, and so no final conclusions can be drawn. But extreme caution is urged since the blackened and pimply faces of the subjects lead one to suspect the worst. Mrs. Forster, as your friend and family physician, I would strongly recommend that your son William eat no more worms until I return on Thursday from New York City, and give him a thorough examination. Yours sincerely, Charles McGrath, C. M. McGrath, M.D. Chapter 32. Croak. His hands trembling, Billy laid down the peanut butter and fried worm sandwich on the table. "Do you think?" "Wow!" whispered Tom. The screen door banged. Billy's father came into the kitchen. His tie loosened, his jacket over his arm. He laid his briefcase on the table. "It's hot," he said cheerfully. Billy staggered to the sink and feebly drew himself a glass of water. Tom and Emily watched him, awestruck. "What's the matter?" asked Billy's father. Water dribbled down Billy's chin and onto his t-shirt as he drank. His mind swam. Poison? Paralysis? Extreme lassitude? "Tom," said Billy's father, "what's going on?" Tom pointed at the letter lying on the table. Billy's father read it, smiled, glanced at Billy, and getting a beer out of the refrigerator, sat down at the table. "Well," he said to Billy, "so it fooled you, eh?" "Fooled me," croaked Billy. Chapter 33. The 14th Worm. "How could Ellen and Joe have known all those medical words, Mr. Forrester?" said Tom. "Lumbricius corpus, fulmar. Do you know what fulmar really means?" Tom and Billy shook their heads. "It means a bird. A seabird, I think." "It means... Oh, boy," said Billy, disgusted. He sat back down at the table and picked up his sandwich. "They could be arrested, Mr. Forrester," said Tom. "Couldn't they be arrested for defrauding the mails? Couldn't they?" Billy grinned and bit down on a peanut butter and fried worm sandwich. Chapter 34. The 15th. Standing on a rusty pail, Billy peered through a crack in the horse barn. Joe was wandering round, lashing at cobwebs with a stick. Alan was slumped on a barrel, gnawing his thumbnail. Billy went around to the door. "Hi," he said. Alan didn't look up. "Hi," said Joe. Billy glanced around suspiciously. "Take it easy," said Joe. "We concede. At least I do. He's still trying to think up something." He pointed at Alan with a stick. "Where's Tom?" said Billy. "He wouldn't eat his lunch, so his mother cupped him in." Billy leaned over the platter on the orange crate and smelled the steaming southern fried worm. "He wanted to load it with red pepper," said Joe, "but I wouldn't let him." Billy forked ketchup and mustard and piccalilli onto the platter, cut a piece of worm, dipped in the glop, stuck it in his mouth, chewed nervously, swallowed, cut another piece. The worm tasted better than the usual sort of kidney beans, southern fried kidney beans. "Where'd you get this one?" "Down behind Bannerman's," said Joe. "From the muck?" yelled Alan. "The muck. Gooey, slimy, stagnant muck." Billy grinned. "Yeah, you'll have to show me. This is the best one yet." Alan jumped up and kicked the barrel, clattering into a stall. Joe shrugged at Billy, grinning. Billy held up the last bite. "Ta-ra!" He swallowed it. "Okay, let me look," said Alan. "Come on," he peered into Billy's mouth. "Oh, no, come on. There's still some stuck between your teeth there." Billy noisily sucked noisily on his teeth. "Okay." Alan's shoulders slumped. "I can't get the money till tomorrow," he said. "Oh, geez, you know I'll have to work on Saturdays for 6 months to pay it back." He trudged slowly towards the door. "Coming, Joe?" "Yeah, maybe your father won't act so bad if I'm there when you tell him." Alan stopped in the door. "Tomorrow?" he said without turning. 10 o'clock? He sounded as if he was going to cry. "Yeah, sure. Make it later if you want." "Nah, it's not going to do any good putting it off. Come on, Joe." Chapter 35. Burp. Left alone in the barn, Billy hugged himself. I won $50. He sat down on the crate, grinning. Heck, I know what I could do to it. I knew I could do it. Ha! I was so scared at first, waking everybody up in the middle of the night. He burped beans. I should have made it 30 worms and $100. That stupid letter. Joe knew he was licked, though. Ha! Jeez. Beans. He stood up. How could that burp taste like beans? He'd had a hamburger for lunch and a glass of milk. Then the worm. Say, they couldn't have. He snatched up the platter, nothing left, just a few crumbs of cornmeal. Cranking his neck, his eyes bugged out, straining, he burped. Beans. Again, beans. He burst out of the barn, standing over the sill, yelling. Across the field, Joe and Alan turned. Alan started to run. Joe grabbed his arm. "It was a fake," panted Billy, coming up to them. "You faked it. It wasn't a real worm." "Real worm?" said Joe. "What are you talking about?" "You made a worm," yelled Billy, "out of beans. Then tomorrow you'd say I lost. I hadn't eaten 15 worms. The last one was fake." "Oh, geez," said Ellen. "Come on, will ya?" "You didn't do it while I was around," said Joe. "You sure? What'd you have for lunch? A hamburger and milk?" "Yeah, well, where'd you get the hamburger?" "I don't know. My mother bought it. What difference does that make?" "Yeah, well, a lot of hamburger you get these days has stuff mixed in. Sausage meat, soybeans, breadcrumbs. So the butcher makes more money." Yeah, said Billy. "Sure. But anyway, you come on back, just to make sure. I'm going to eat another worm." "Geez, suit yourself. Eat 4 more. Come on, Ellen, let's go. Let him eat what he wants."